Hello and welcome to episode 16 of the Devy to Dynasty Film Room podcast. My name is Matt Jackson. I'm your host for tonight, and with me, as always, I have my co-host Matt Cooper
What's up?
and Matt Rupert.
How's it going?
How the heck are you guys doing tonight? On this fine Tuesday night.
Just weathering the storm out. Been
Yeah,
pretty crazy weather all day.
You guys staying dry?
No, not at all.
Dude,
It's actually mostly dry now here. It was monsooning this morning, but kind of cleared up by mid-afternoon. But yeah, man, if I'm honest, I'm pretty tired, but I'm powering through tonight. Let's get into it, man. I'm exhausted, but we're going to give it all we got tonight.
Definitely feel that. Well, we are nevertheless excited for tonight. Tonight we're going to be continuing our Inside the Prospect series, looking at the wide receiver position. And guys, I kind of feel like we're going to have some different opinions on the two guys that we're talking about tonight. One of those guys that we're talking about, we just got to see in the college football playoff national championship. And one of the guys is somebody that the Twitter community and really Dynasty community as a whole, I feel like is all over, but frankly, I don't really get the hype. So I'm excited to get you guys' take on these two guys. Of course, that is Florida State's Keon Coleman and Washington's Rome Odunze. Well, without further ado, we're going to dive straight on in. And the first guy we're going to talk about is FSU's Keon Coleman. He's a 6'4", 215-pound junior. He was a former four-star prospect and the number 42 wide receiver in his class. And a lot to like about this guy when it comes to just a recruiting profile. I mean, he is a three-sport athlete in track, basketball, and football. So anybody that knows, you like to see these guys be dual athletes and show their athleticism and multiple facets. And Keon Coleman definitely did that. Definitely had a better sophomore season than he did a junior season. He dipped in yards from 798 to 658. So production wasn't quite there his last season. But what do you guys say we go and dive right into this guy? And the first thing that we're going to talk about is his route running, an area that I think honestly was a little bit of a weakness for him. But I'm interested to get you guys' take. I'll start with you, Rupert. When it came to his route running, specifically maybe his release and how he runs his routes, the stem of his routes, how he snaps his hips and breaks in his cuts. What did you see when it came to his route running?
I think he's going to really struggle to get open in the NFL. He does seem to have the work ethic, playing multiple sports and everything, and, has a good athletic profile. But I just didn't really see much on the game film from him. His release was very slow, didn't really get any DBs on their heels from what I saw, particularly in the weight game. They just played bump and run with him, and he can never break free. Pretty much, it was really rough sledding for him all game in that one. He is not particularly quick, like with jab steps or stutter steps off the line, and then it kind of just translates to at the top of the route as well. Like he's not particularly quick. He can't just step his foot in the ground, sink his hips, come to a stop, turn around on a comeback, or put a foot in the ground, start going the opposite direction for a corner or a post route. I thought this was his biggest weakness in his game. And the fact that I don't think he's going to get open very much in the NFL, kind of makes me very low on him compared to all the hype I've been seeing on Twitter.
Yeah, let me tell you something that really bothered me when I came to watching his film. And maybe this was just the one game that I was watching. He was maybe having an off day or maybe just wasn't in it mentally. But I'm telling you, I watched a 10-minute film of this guy running routes. And for the first 5 or 6 minutes, every time he went to release or to start his route, he started his route by walking. And that just irritated the fire out of me. I'm like, what are you walking for, man? Run, act like you want to be out there. And so that really bothered me. Cooper, did you see any of that? What did you see when it came to his route?
When you said irritated the fire out of you, I thought another F word was about to come out of your mouth. And I was going to be
we're going to keep it clean tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually, so let me preface this. When I went into watching his film, I did not expect to like what I was going to see for a couple reasons. One is, and I mean, this is full transparency. This is like shallowest of shallow analysis. But when I look at the box scores, right? When I look at, and this is why we do the tape study, because we want to go beyond the box score. But when I look at the box scores and I see games of, I mean, he has 3 games all year with more than 5 catches. That's not great. He has 6 games with 3 or less catches. Also not great. So when I see a guy disappearing for long stretches and he's got entire games where it's 4 catches, 19 yards, 1 catch, 24 yards, 4 catches, 24 yards, and he happened to get in the end zone, 2 catches, 54 yards. Like, this is a guy that is kind of a big play threat. In my mind, I'm forming the picture. He's a big play threat, but he's not consistently getting open to earn those targets and earn that volume. And that's usually, like, just historically my study of the tape. Usually when I see these kinds of box scores, I go to the tape and the tape backs that up. And I'm like, man, this guy's not separating at all. And then on top of it, like, whenever I've watched FSU or I've seen the highlights, it's always contested catches, contested catches, contested catches. So I was going into it kind of expecting to see a terrible route runner. And I was a little surprised. And part of it, one of the 2 games that I watched was his LSU game. He had 9 catches, 122 yards, 3 touchdowns. It was his best game of the season. And that was the first game that I watched. I was like actually more impressed than I expected to be. Certainly he's rough around the edges. He needs a lot of development in the technical aspects of his game. From a physical standpoint, I thought he was pretty quick off the line. I saw moments where he was really snappy in and out of his breaks. And I did see him create some separation. Now, there were some bad habits too. There were some instances where he didn't create any separation at all and he pushed off at the stem of his route, and that was how he got open. And, honestly, when you're 6'4", 200+ pounds, and that doesn't get called on the offense a ton, I mean, we'll talk later about ball skills and physicality and that type of thing. I actually think when you know how to use your size like that and be a little bit of a bully, you're going to get away with it more often than not, and that's a positive thing. But there were some pretty obvious, like, extension of the arm to get open because he wasn't doing it with his technique. So I did see some of that. I saw some really rounded routes, especially slants. Every single time I saw him run a slant, it was really rounded. And the walking thing that you guys saw, like, I saw it once in the 2 games that I studied. So for me, it was not like a huge pattern, but this is why we want to get a big sample size, right? If all I'm watching is the 2 games and I'm not maybe seeing some of what y'all are seeing and vice versa. So we can go back later. We can watch the games. I can watch the games that y'all watch. Y'all can watch the games that I watch. We can see if we notice things from the other person's perspective. But when I compare him to like a guy like Quentin Johnston last year, who I thought really was basically never open and wasn't separating at all, I was more impressed with Keon Coleman as a route runner than I was with Quentin Johnston. And his ball skills are like way, way, way better, which we'll talk about in a second. So I'm not like totally out on this guy. I think his ADP, based on the hype and the potential and the upside and the athletic profile, might end up being higher than I'm comfortable paying. But I don't know if I would say that I see bust written all over this guy. I think he's got the tools to potentially, like, I just see the flashes of it enough. It's not super consistent, but I see the flashes of it enough that I'm intrigued by Keon Coleman. Maybe not at like a top 5, top 6 rookie pick level kind of intrigued, but I am intrigued, especially, if it proves true that he gets the first round draft capital like he's projected, and, we'll see where he lands. And all of that is a factor for me. I'm not going to be totally out on him like it sounds like you guys are.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm totally out on him. I think I'm like you. I see the flashes because for me, I saw a tale of 2 different tapes, and that was something that I wanted to talk about. When I watched him play against Syracuse, that was the game where he was just walking off his routes. He was rounding off the ones that he was running, and he ran a crazy amount of go routes and wide receiver screens. So not a great sample size when you watch that game. But then I turned on his Duke game, and in that game he was running a wider variety of routes. He was running some slants. He was running some out routes. He was running some comeback routes. And some of those routes, I did see him be snappy with his breaks. I did see him getting out of his breaks really well. And I saw him running, and his effort level was just way higher than it was in that Syracuse game. So like you said, I mean, that's why you watch multiple games, because what you see in one game might be different from what you see in another game. And for me, I think it was just inconsistent is the word when I talk about Keon Coleman's route running to me.
That's really interesting too, because like the Duke game that you said was better was 2 catches for 54 yards. The Syracuse game that you didn't like, he had 9 catches, 141 yards, and a touchdown.
Yeah.
So really interesting there. But I didn't watch those. I watched LSU and I watched Miami. So definitely interested to go back and take a closer look at this guy. And he warrants it because he's going to be picked high enough in your rookie draft that you really need to do a full study and figure out where you stand on him. So yeah, he's interesting. He's definitely raw. He's got a lot of room to improve his technique. We can all agree on that, I think.
Well, let's go to.
I'm not totally out on him. Like you said, he's raw, but he does have some intriguing, things about his game where he's probably going to find a good spot on an NFL team. And then the fact that he's a 3-sport athlete, like if he could just, focus all of his work ethic on refining his routes, which is something that is coachable and, you can solve with work ethic. So I wouldn't say I'm totally out on him at all. I think like his issues are fixable, which is really good. And he has, kind of like a trump card with his like ability to always be open when he's not open because of his body control.
Absolutely. He's got an elite trait, so we should talk about it.
Yeah, that's something I really want to dive into because I think his ball skills are an area where he really shined on tape. His body control, his physicality, the way he high points the ball, goes up and grabs the ball. I mean, when I watched him, I think this was his strongest trait. I mean, his ability to win in contested catch situations, his ability to go up and make incredible catches with one hand at the high point of the pass, I think was really a strong suit for him. Cooper, what did you think about that?
Yeah, he's got really, really strong hands.
Mm-hmm.
He's 6'4", over 200 pounds. He's big enough to be like that true alpha. And I think, that's always, people are always going to be enticed by that. But he's got great vertical jump. He catches with his hands outside of his frame. So that gives him a really huge catch radius. And he's physical. Like he plays bully ball. There's guys that are big and then there's guys that are big and they know how to use it. And the hand fighting, just the way he created separation at the catch point, even if he didn't do a great job creating separation on the route, just that last little like micro movement to create that little bit of separation between him and the DB, the box out, the go up, the high point, and to concentrate and finish the catch through contact. I mean, just everything, the body control to contort when it was, just thrown behind him or something like that. Every aspect of ball skills I felt like was really, really high level for him. And so that to me, like when you compare that, now I prefer a guy who's a technical route runner that's always open, that's going to get high volume. But if you're going to have a guy that people are falling in love with because he's tall, he needs to have the elite ball skills, which was why I didn't like QJ last year, is because like, okay, yeah, he's tall, but he doesn't use his height effectively. That's not the case with Keon Coleman. So, I mean, I look at a guy like George Pickens right now in the NFL, which now he's got all kinds of, he's a basket case on the mental side of things, the work ethic. There's all kinds of questions with George Pickens, but he actually has been somewhat productive because he has that elite ability to separate at the catch point, even though he's not an elite route runner at this point. So I think Keon Coleman has a floor for me of being in that George Pickens range with a ceiling to be better than that.
What about you, Rupert? Did you see the same thing when it came to his body control, ball skills?
100%. Like Cooper said, it's elite. I think you can really see his basketball background there with the way he is able to like hand fight and box out. And like I didn't see him once like not time his jump correctly. So he's always high pointing the ball and then super strong hands. Didn't see a single drop on film. Really loves that part of his game. That was by far his strongest suit. That's why I say like he definitely has a role in the NFL for me.
I will say just to hit on that point. The two films that I was watching, I counted, I think, 2 concentration drops where he was just trying to make a move. He was trying to turn and get upfield before he had the ball in his hands. And he made some pretty catchable balls. I mean, he dropped them. So, I mean, that isn't something that I'm terribly worried about because his film is covered with his ability to go up and get the ball. So I don't think that's consistent for him, but it is worth noting that I saw on my two
Okay.
films.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't see any of those in my 2 games, but yeah, one thing I will say about Keon Coleman too is that when you're a Devy guy and there's certain people that you've been watching for years, like a Rome Odunze, who we're going to talk about, like a Troy Franklin, Marvin Harrison Jr., Neighbors, and then a guy like Keon Coleman kind of bursts on the scene because this very first game of the season, he's going against LSU, who at the time was a top 5 team in the nation. It was a big game. It was on national television. He went for 9 catches, 122 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he looked good doing it. And everyone immediately, it's like the hype train just went through the roof, and everybody was saying he's a first-round pick. He's the wide receiver 2 of the class. And so I think it's natural for a lot of Devy guys to be like, whoa, pump the brakes. Like, these other guys have been doing it for years. How are you going to all of a sudden just put him above these other guys? And I felt that. I was like, man, Keon Coleman's overrated. But now I think that we're getting to the actual rookie season where we're digging into the all 22 tape and people are seeing the full picture on these prospects. I think the pendulum has a way of kind of correcting itself. And now all of a sudden everybody's like, oh yeah, Odunze above. So he's not people's wide receiver 2 anymore, and he's getting more appropriately priced. And so I think just depending on what the price tag ends up being when everything is said and done is going to depend on whether I'll take a shot on him or not.
Oh yeah, completely agree. And I think that goes for a lot of the guys that we're going to talk about. One of the things that I didn't really get a firm grasp on was his yards after the catch ability. I don't know about y'all, but whenever he caught the ball, because maybe he wasn't getting separation in his routes, I didn't see much yards after the catch ability on his game. He was either making big plays down the field and immediately getting tackled, or it was short passes where the guy was right on his hip and he didn't really get very far. Did you guys see anything when it came to his yards after the catch?
No, I saw the same thing you did. Like you said, he's not really getting separation. So as soon as he catches it, the guy's like right on his legs. So I didn't really see anything in that regard.
What about you, Cooper?
I saw a few good moments. One in particular, you maybe have seen the highlight against LSU. He caught a slant over the middle, and there's a safety right in front of him, and he gives him a dead leg cut that just should not be able to happen at 6'4", 215 pounds or whatever he is. And it was like filthy, and then he house called it. So that was like, wow, that I didn't see it. It wasn't like all over his tape, but that moment, it was like, wow, the fact that he can move like that and make a guy miss and then take it for a house call at his size was really impressive. And then there were a couple other just smaller moments where it just felt like he had good instincts, where he would catch it and immediately like turn away from, the defender's coming from one side. And then so he turns the other way and just gets that 5 yards when he could have just gotten tackled, just a little thing. So I felt like yards after catch, it wasn't like elite like that. Actually, talking about QJ, was his best trait last year. Like he would catch it and consistently make a guy miss and break a big playoff with it. I didn't see it like all over his tape or anything, but I saw flashes of what I would say is definitely above average movement skills for a guy his size. So yeah. I liked his yards after catch in the couple games that I watched.
And I think that kind of speaks to his athleticism, right? We already know he's got the size, he's got the body control, he's got the frame to be a true wide receiver 1. But one of the things that I really liked about his athleticism, while he didn't break a big yards after the catch run for a house call, there was one play in particular in one of the games I was watching where he caught the ball, he turned, and just like you said, Cooper, gave a nasty little dead leg that just at his size he shouldn't be doing, right? Like you shouldn't have the ability to do that. He didn't get very far. There was like 3 or 4 guys around him, so he got tackled. But he made the first guy fall. Like he broke down the first guy, and he did something that just makes you go for a second, like, wow, like even though you didn't do something with that, like that's what you want to see in his film to like make you feel comfortable drafting a guy like that. Did you guys see anything else when it came to his athleticism that just made you go wow and kind of stop where you were at? I'll start with you, Cooper.
Yeah, I mean, he looked fast to me, which it's hard for a guy that size to look fast, because a lot of times even when they are fast, they still look slow, right? Because they're such long strides. He looked fast, and he consistently had DBs on their heels on these deep routes. Like they definitely had to respect his speed. And so, yeah, he looked fast. He looked like he could jump real high. And then I saw just a few cuts that surprised me that he was able to cut that way at his size. So yeah, that's definitely, I mean, the athleticism goes hand in hand with the ball skills. I think that's his best quality.
Yeah. Did you say the same thing, Rupert, or did you have a different opinion on that?
I didn't really see much that where like I was expecting to see more of an athlete and, you know, burn some people, and I didn't see that once on the games that I watched. I kind of thought that he would be someone that probably tests a little bit better than what his game speed is with pads and everything, just due to his track background, which makes sense. But yeah, I wasn't really blown away with too much athletically other than, you know, jumping and body control.
Yeah. I would really be interested to go back and watch his LSU film that you watched, Cooper, because that seems like it paints a different picture than the pictures that me and Rupert both got. Mm-hmm. So I'd be interested to go back and watch that one.
Yeah, and I didn't see him, like, to your point, Rupert, of just like running past people. That's not really what I saw. It wasn't like, you know, Jamison Williams, like just 10 yards open because he just ran past the person like they were standing still. It was more so like the DBs were running with him, but they were having a sprint to run with him, which then if he like really refines his technique and he can figure out how to sink his hips and snap out of his route, then you can really get open because the DB is so threatened by your speed. And so that's where I think there's potential for him to develop in that way. But I could see the DBs had to respect it, but it wasn't like he was just totally burning them every play or anything like that.
Well,
but for his size, I think it's good size adjusted speed. It's not like he's Tyreek Hill, but for being 6'4", he's got good enough speed to make NFL DBs have to sprint to run with him. We'll put it that way.
I will say I didn't see him get pressed a lot. Like DBs were backing off of him on the films that I was watching. So maybe that's, you know, maybe that was part of the reason.
Watch the weight game. That seems like all they did the entire game.
Well, when you guys look at his, I mean, Matt Cooper, you were talking about this. Like, what round would you feel comfortable projecting him as a maybe flex player, quality starter? Where do you really see him going, and what do you project him at the next level?
So, you know, if I was an NFL team, I probably would not spend a first-round pick on him. I'd probably take him more in the second-round range, like a Christian Watson type, because I think he's more of that raw athlete. Than if I'm spending a first-round pick on a receiver, I want a guy that's refined, and I know he's going to come in and contribute to my team right away. So I'll just say that I don't think he's a first-round NFL talent. I do think the traits that he has physically gives him big upside, but I'm not taking him in the top half of my first round of a rookie draft, knowing that there's a lot of bust risk, and he's a bit of a project, and he needs to land in the right situation and that type of thing. So for me, like late first round, like probably 109 or later, and you know, we'll see where I end up once I've studied the rest of this rookie class, like where he actually falls for me. And I think he's got the upside to be like Pro Bowl or even higher, but I think he certainly has a floor of like out of the league. So there's a wide range of outcomes for this guy. It's hard to really project like what he's going to be.
Yeah, I can kind of see him. I mean, just with the guys we've studied so far, I don't know if I feel comfortable taking him higher than the top of the second right now, but that's just early. I mean, we haven't even come out with our rankings yet, so I'll bear that all with a grain of salt. What about you, Rupert?
Yeah, I wouldn't take him anywhere before the second. If I was the NFL GM, he'd be probably like back in the third round to fourth round kind of wide receiver for me at the moment. He's got the upside. He has the contested catch and body control kind of trump card, and then something we didn't really go over, but he's really good in the run blocking game. Yeah. So I think he's going to find a spot on an NFL team. I just don't know how much fantasy production it's going to translate to.
Well, let's move on to a guy that I'm excited to talk about, and that's Rome Odunze from Washington. Just got a chance to see him in the national championship, and congratulations to the Michigan Wolverines on winning that national championship. A lot of talk that I've heard coming out of that game. Well, this is why you don't watch guys for one game. You watch them all season. So I'm glad that we got to do that with Rome Odunze, 6'3", 215-pound junior. He was a former four-star prospect and number 22 wide receiver in his class. garnered attention from a lot of different schools like Alabama, Texas, Georgia, Michigan, Penn State. I mean, a lot of the guys teams that you want to see going after these guys before you ultimately settle with Washington, and had a career year last year. 1,500 yards receiving, 13 touchdowns, really challenged Marvin Harrison Jr. for that top wide receiver guy in this year's for this year's Biletnikoff Award. So when it comes to him, we're going to start with route running like we always do. And I'll start with you, Rupert. What did you see when it came to his route running?
I really loved his route running. His jab step on his release was phenomenal. He was able to get open consistently with that, just being able to like separate his feet and then, just kind of get the DB guessing right away and then, cut inside, get inside leverage on the DB or break outside. He's really good at the stem of his route as well. He has really strong legs to be able to plant one foot, completely change direction, and not lose speed. He really excelled on those post routes and corner routes due to that.
I noticed him, kind of the same thing. Lots of good snappy routes, quick routes that I saw. Sunk his hips really well. I really enjoyed his route running. He ran a lot of variety of routes from what I saw.
Yeah.
Which you like to see from a wide receiver. You like to see an advanced route tree. And I feel like Rome Odunze has it. What do you think about him, Cooper?
Yeah, this is a guy that I am going to need to watch more of. My 2 games, one of them was only a 4-minute, even though it was a full game. The whole cut up was 4 minutes long. And I'll also, if you're cool with your Dynasty analyst being human, I was really exhausted when I watched Rome Odunze. Like, I don't feel like I was mentally at my best. But I also found myself writing down like mixed notes. Like one play I would write like, oh man, he played through physicality well. And then another I'd write like, wow, they were physical with him and it totally knocked him off of his route. And he didn't handle it well. And it was like, oh wow, that was a really smooth route. And then, oh, that one looked a little rounded. So I felt like there was maybe a little bit of inconsistency in what I was seeing, but the high end of it, I'm seeing what you guys are saying. Like I saw some really crisp, smooth routes, some really sharp breaks at the stem, some defensive manipulation where he's leaning one way, gets the defender leaning that way, and then he snaps off and he's wide open. Saw some really like great and quick first step on his release against press coverage. We're just immediately within 2 steps, he's got the defense playing catch up, and he's got whatever position. Like if he wants to get outside, he's getting outside. If he wants to get inside, he's getting inside. So I saw the release was definitely the most impressive thing.
Yeah.
I feel like I saw some inconsistencies at the stem of his routes. And my biggest like knock, I think, that I found myself writing down a lot was when they would jam him and get really physical with him, even though he's a big wide receiver, it seemed like it bothered him a lot. Like I just didn't see him, particularly like in the Oregon game that I watched, the conference championship, Pac-12 championship, they were pressing him a ton, and whoever was guarding him, frankly, was holding him a lot. He was getting away with some stuff, I think. So, in Odunze's defense, like I don't think all the defense being played against him was fully legal, but he was struggling. It was knocking him off of his timing. He was getting frustrated. He was throwing his hands up. He was begging for calls, but he wasn't, like when we were studying Marvin Harrison Jr., he would kind of do the little get off me and then he'd get right back to his route, and he would make you pay for it. Like whether it was with a technique, like I'm going to take a jab step, and when you go to push me, I'm going to be gone doing the little okey doke. Yep. And now I'm 10 yards open downfield, or I'm just going to out physical you. If you're going to push me, I'm going to push you harder. Like Marvin Harrison Jr., if they tried to get physical with him, he would make it backfire on him. And I didn't see that with Rome Odunze. I saw him kind of fold a bunch of times. So that was my biggest issue with him as a route runner was the physicality.
I kind of saw the same thing when it came to his physicality. He didn't really fight through hand contact, I feel like, as well as I may have wanted him to, but I felt like he made up for that in his routes run. Like he did a lot of the little things for me that you don't get points for, but they matter, right? When I'm talking about this is like when he's working in a route, he looks back and sees Michael Penix running around in the backfield. And let's face it, when Michael Penix gets pressured a little bit, it's not exactly the best thing for that offense. We saw that in the national championship game. when Michael Penix was getting pressured, he would work away from his route and work up the field to give him somebody to throw the ball to. So little things like that were like, you want a savvy route runner to know to do that. He
Yeah, he's
understood
savvy
that.
for sure. And a fourth, I mean, older player, fourth year senior, not an early declare guy. So I mean, he's an experienced player, and he's improved a lot from like early in his college career. Like he's definitely improved in a lot of those kinds of areas. Improved his football IQ, improved his route running, improved his contested catch ability, and his ability to use that size. Because I saw him, he didn't get bullied as much at the catch point. It was more on the route.
Yeah.
Specifically,
we're going to talk about that because I liked what I saw at his catch point. And before we go in, like I just want to say, like his savviness, like he sat down in zones, like he understands zones where the holes in those zones are, and he sits down in them really well. So that's just one of those things that you like to see him do.
One of the notes that I made over and over again, which is very reminiscent to watching JSN and Josh Downs last year, is like he is always open. Like, oh, he busted wide open on this round, Penix missed him, and or he busted wide open, Penix, was pressured and threw a check down. Like there's, I think, like 3 plays like within like a couple minutes on the game field where it's like, oh man, he just broke free. That was a house call, but Penix didn't see it.
And I'm excited to dive into Penix because I saw that a lot when I was watching Rome Odunze's film, where I'm like, oh, if Penix, who is right now getting talked out like a first-round pick, if he would have made that throw, Odunze would have had probably closer to 1,700 yards receiving than 1,500.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a little wild.
Definitely after walking him a little lower on Penix than I expected to be.
And to your point, Rupert, about the always open and the Josh Downs JSN comparison, I really liked what I saw out of Odunze in the short to intermediate game. These little like very crisp slants, out routes, like just quick, give your quarterback an option and then get upfield and get some yards after the catch. Whereas some of the other receivers in this class, because they're these bigger bodied guys or they're these speed freaks like Neighbors, Franklin, Adonai Mitchell, a lot of these guys that we've talked about, even Keon Coleman, they're more of like deep threats. They're big play guys. And not that, I mean, Neighbors certainly can do it in the short to intermediate area. So, but I think Rome is one of the best players I've studied in this class so far in that short to intermediate area, which is great in PPR leagues where you can just rack up the volume, getting open on those short, quick routes.
For sure. Yeah.
100% agree.
I do want to talk about his ball skills because, like you said, Cooper, this was something that I thought was a pretty good plus for him. Not that he could was very physical in his routes, but I felt like he was a very physical wide receiver at the catch point. He would do really well, I felt like, more than I guess was expecting him to do at contested catch situations. I walked away rather impressed with him on this front. His contested catch, his body control, I think his hands were great. So that was something that I was actually kind of impressed when it came to Rome Odunze that I didn't really think of when I thought about his game. But Cooper, what did you think about that area?
Yeah, I mean, he struggled with that early in his college career. What everybody said about him was, oh, even though he's 6'3", 200+ pounds, he doesn't play like it. This year, he played like it. I mean, he definitely improved in that area. And, I thought he had a good sense for like making back shoulder catches. And Penix, to his credit, we've kind of dumped on Penix a little bit unintentionally here. But I thought he did a good job placing some of those back shoulder throws where he would throw Odunze open, even though he wasn't fully open. And Odunze would adjust well to it. He had good, strong hands and good body control. So I liked what I saw there. I didn't think that it was elite, but I liked what I saw there. I thought it was strong. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. What about you, Rupert?
I really liked what I saw here. Just like you, Jackson, I was a little surprised like how much I ended up liking his like hands and contested catch ability. Very strong hands. He showed really good technique, kind of flashing his hands late. So he's not really giving the DB much time to react. He would hold his hands together and kind of keep them together as he go up. So it makes it harder for the DB to kind of swat his hands away. And I didn't count any drops on the games that I watched. Right. And overall, like came away very impressive. I think, Coleman may be a little bit better there for sure, but not expecting him to really kind of show that really surprised me and made me a lot higher on him than I expected to be.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely an unintended surprise when it came to his film. His yards after the catch ability, I think what was good, I really like the way he ran with the ball in his hands. He gained yards after the catch, but I will tell you when it comes to his speed, his long speed in particular, I wasn't like super blown away by it. And maybe that was just the games that I was watching, but I didn't leave going, oh yeah, man, this guy's a speed freak. He's blowing people out, like he's leaving people in the dust. Like I don't think that's really Rome Odunze's game. What do you guys think?
I think you're right. I mean, it's not just you. It's not just the games that you watch. And honestly, I've heard people say that about him for years, that he's just not a freak athlete, which is true. I mean, he wins with size and he wins with technique. And it's not like he's slow. I mean, I don't think he's gonna go out there and test like he's David Bell or something, but I think he's just average. Like he's not gonna be somebody who wins with speed, with freakish speed and acceleration. He's got a quick enough first step off the line, and he's fast enough that the defense has to respect it, but he's not a burner by any stretch of the imagination.
Agreed. Like I think it's totally fine. Like he's not slow at all. But he's just not a speed freak. I think he'll probably test, high 4.4s, low 4.5.
Yeah, which I mean gets it done at the NFL level. Like I don't think this is
Sure.
this isn't a knock for him, but it's not something that I was like, man, this is how he wins. I
Yeah.
think he wins in his routes running, his crispness of his routes, his just savvy knowledge of like how to sit down in a defense, how to run his routes, his movement skills, and this is something we're going to talk about when it comes to his athleticism, how he moves without the ball, how he moves with the ball. I think that's what makes him a good receiver. It's not his speed,
Yeah.
Mhm.
He's good in a phone booth. Really good in a phone booth.
for sure.
Yeah, yards after catch was something I liked. I thought he had good instincts there. I even saw him return a kick for like take it to the house, which surprised me at 6'3". I was like, oh, I didn't know he had that in his game. But yeah, I thought I saw a number of plays where he defeated an angle to just make that first guy miss, get to the corner and get upfield, get to a first down, get out of bounds. He wasn't like breaking off these gigantic runs. It wasn't elite yards after the catch, but I thought he was pretty good in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My note was he's good, but not great. I think you pointed out earlier, Cooper, like he showed a really good instinct to be able to like catch it underneath and immediately get upfield and get 3, 4, 5 extra yards on that, which is getting him close to a first down every time.
Exactly.
He showed that a lot. He's good enough like on the crossing routes and mesh routes, to kind of run away from the defender and get to the first down.
And I kind of want to wrap these last two kind of together. His athleticism, we've already talked about his size, how he uses that to his advantage. And then intangibles, football IQ, his knowledge when it comes to running routes, his run blocking. Was there anything else in these last few categories that you would say, yeah, that's a strength for Rome Odunze, or maybe that's a weakness for him?
I think his football IQ was, really up there. Like we kind of hit on it, like the way he's able to set up defenders and in zone coverage, be able to find that soft spot, be able to kind of like feel the defenders on the field when he's turning upfield. I thought he showed really high football IQ for me, which makes sense for a fourth-year player, but I think it's a big plus for him.
What about you, Cooper?
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of hit on it. I agree with what you guys have observed about his football IQ. And I think in terms of run blocking, we didn't even really cover that with Coleman either. I think both of those guys were pretty solid in that area. Coleman, I thought, had that like physical, nasty, like I want to truck you, I want to pancake you. Whereas Odunze, I mean, he certainly was a willing blocker, but what I wouldn't have called it a strength. I mean, it's not a weakness. He's solid. He's a willing blocker, and he's strong enough, and he can hold his guy for a second so that somebody can get by. I saw some good blocks and some bad blocks out of Rome Odunze, so I thought he was, average in that department.
Yeah.
No, Keon Coleman's run blocking is definitely, he's a guy that is going to pancake somebody when it comes to run blocking. And that's what I saw in his film. When it comes to a guy like Odunze, he's a really good run blocker. He's physical, but it's not over the top. But I mean, he can do it, and that's not an area of weakness for him. When I think about Rome Odunze, he's a guy that I definitely feel like, I'm gonna feel comfortable spending a first round pick on him. I can see him going definitely in the first round of NFL drafts. And I would feel comfortable taking him at the 106, 107 round in rookie drafts. What do you guys think? I'll start with you, Rupert.
100% agree. I really like him. I didn't really have any kind of weaknesses on his game. Not a ton of like super elite traits. My kind of comp for him, or like kind of what I see is like his ceiling is like a Golden Tate, consistent 1,100 yard kind of receiver.
I love
Those kind of
that.
wins with good route running and a little bit of yak and football awareness.
I'm not a comp guy, but I really like that Golden Tate comp. Cooper, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't overwhelmed with him, but I wasn't underwhelmed either. Like I said at the beginning, I need to study more tape on him and do it when I'm a little bit more alert. He didn't wow me very often, but he sure was smooth. And, I like the size at 6'3". So, I'm comfortable spending a first round rookie pick on him, and it's a loaded wide receiver class. So I think somewhere, anywhere around depending if you're super flex or one quarterback, I could see him going as high in a one quarterback league as 103, 104, pending, study of other guys. And in a super flex league, probably more like 105, 106 range. And I think he's going to be a solid fantasy starter. I don't know how high his ceiling is just because of the limitations physically, but we've even seen with a guy like Keenan Allen that if you are a good enough route runner, it doesn't matter. You can still have super high fantasy upside. So I'm not even going to sit here and say that his ceiling is limited. I think he's a solid fantasy starter with upside for more. And he's got a really good floor on him because I just feel very confident that he's going to hit at the NFL level and be a solid starter. So
You weren't underwhelmed or overwhelmed. You were just whelmed.
just whelmed. Yeah.
Matt Cooper is just whelmed when it comes to Rome Odunze. Good to know.
I was also like struggling to keep my eyes open at certain moments watching his tape. So full transparency with you guys. Y'all, we keep it a buck here. Y'all know exactly where I was at with this.
Love it. Well, that about does us for tonight, guys. Why don't you tell the people where they can find you? I'll start with you, Cooper. Tell them where they can find you on Twitter. If they are listening to this show on not YouTube, when they're listening on Apple Podcasts, where can they find this awesome YouTube page?
Yeah, so you can follow me at Twitter at Devy2DynastyFR, the number 2, not TO. And YouTube channel is the same thing, youtube.com/@Devy2DynastyFR. And would love to have you drop us a sub, leave a like, leave a comment. Hopefully you guys enjoy what we're doing, and all the support that you can give just helps us to grow and keep making content. So if you're on Apple, leave us a good review. We really appreciate you guys.
What about you, Cooper or Rupert?
You can find me at Matthew Rupert FF on Twitter.
Awesome. You guys can find me at Devy Matt on Twitter. If you guys have any questions, any guys that you want to see us break down on future podcast episodes, make sure to send those to us. Like Cooper said, if you are on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a 5-star review and a comment on the YouTube page if you're listening on there. We'd love to interact with you guys, get you guys' opinions on these guys. But that about does us for tonight. We will see you guys next time.